Sakata Yuichi is currently a second-year student in high school. When he arrives home, he is greeted by a girl who welcomes him back, revealing that they are married classmates as she offers him dinner. Before this scene unfolds, we see Sakata at school, where he is greeted by his friend Karai. Earlier, Sakata's father had given him the peace sign, announcing that he would be absent for an entire year due to a wedding. He instructs Sakata to uphold the responsibilities of their household. Sakata reflects on how ever since his father's divorce, life has felt akin to sinking in quicksand. His father also mentions that he will be going to the agency the next day. Next, we meet Nihara Momono, who exudes an alluring charm as she gives a playful, kawaii anime wink. However, our protagonist is transformed into a full-blown hentai warlord, wanting to distance himself from real girls as if they were the cheeks on his backside. As he lets out a sigh, he notices a girl sitting alone, absorbed in a book. He and Mesa exchange glances at her, and Sakata finds himself curious about her identity. He asks Masa if she has introduced herself yet, but Masa is also unsure. Sakata reflects that it must be nice to live a peaceful life like hers. This thought triggers a quick flashback filled with tragic anime tropes, taking us back to when his life felt like sunshine, rainbows, and tax-free bliss. Everything changed one fateful day when, while cracking jokes and enjoying each other's company, he decided to ask a girl out privately. Unfortunately, she turned him down. It wasn't even a harsh rejection. She didn't spit in his face or anything dramatic like that. Sakata merely felt a bit down but continued his daily life as usual. However, when he opened the door to his classroom, he discovered that everyone was aware of his confession, and they relentlessly teased him about it. It wasn't anything scandalous, but Sakata reacted as if he were Bruce Wayne witnessing his parents' murder by a pack of chihuahuas. After that, he vowed to put an end to his sunny disposition, embracing instead a persona filled with darkness, eyeliner, and emo music. As he walks home, he clutches onto his anime girl merchandise from a game called Love Idol Dream, Iris Stage. Then, he shifts into promo mode and begins a sponsored segment, explaining after discovering the game. He isolated himself and has been going on like this ever since. Yuna is the girl character he pulled from the gacha, and he lost countless resources to obtain her. Everything about her, the way she expresses herself, her voice, her vibe, even her armpit and left toe, makes him want to marry her. Following that incident, he became terrified of real girls and instead fell for 2D ones. Knowing they could never betray him, he finds himself fantasizing about Yuna in her wedding dress. Then, he spots a girl standing under a tree, reaching for something. Realizing it's the same quiet girl from his class, he sees that she's trying to retrieve a piece of paper stuck in the tree. He walks up behind her, retrieves it, and hands it to her. She smiles in gratitude, explaining that it's something very special to her. Sakata blushes, recalling a scene from the game he plays. The two share a moment, gazing at each other before he awkwardly excuses himself and runs away, reminding himself that he can't betray Yachan. However, they both end up in front of Sakata's house, where his sister, Nao, steps out and chastises him for being late. She tells him to be quiet because she doesn't want to hear any excuses and confiscates his gooning materials, leading to an argument. He insists that Yaikan is the hope for humanity's survival. Now Yu retorts that if by humanity he means his virginity, then he's in trouble. At this rate, he'll become a shut-in, despised by society, and a bigger burden than their dad. See, the girl intervenes, asking if he's talking about Izumi Yuna, who played the role of Yuna in Iris Stage. Sakata affirms this and expresses his love for her. Suddenly, she thanks him, leaving him puzzled by her response. She then reveals that she is, in fact, Izumi Yuna. Stunned, he asks if they share the same name or surname, but she clarifies that her actual name is Watan Yuka. Nu recognizes the name and walks back inside, congratulating Sakata on his engagement. She explains that their father arranged for him to meet his future marriage partner, and that person is standing right in front of him. Thanking him for his love and support, Nu informs him that she is the daughter of the client their dad mentioned. Sakata's wish has come true. He is now engaged to Izumi Yuna from Iris Stage. The two sit at the dining table, where she asks him about his favorite character. About an hour ago, the three of them had gathered at the table, and upon taking a closer look at Yuka's face, Sakata realizes she has a rather refined expression. Noticing his gaze, Yuka begins to blush. They start apologizing to each other, and Nu encourages him not to be so stiff. Sakata then asks if she understands the current situation, and she explains that his father is closely connected to her client and that both of their children are promised to marry. Nu suggests that Yuka could live in their house since her brother is living alone. However, Sakata objects, stating that they are only in high school and not ready for marriage. Nu counters that it would be a different kind of arrangement, similar to marriage. Sakata feels she might have just made that term up and insists that the other party involved, meaning Yuka, can't simply agree to this. He also reiterates his vow not to pursue relationships with real girls, prompting Nu to exclaim, "Grow up and put some hair on that thing?" She expresses her frustration over his incessant rejections, declaring she's tired of hearing it. In response, he pulls out his game and begins to drool over 2D girls again, which causes Nu to slam the table in annoyance. She stands up, tells him to enjoy his life with his wife, and angrily wishes him luck before leaving. The two sit in silence at the dining table, the tension making the atmosphere awkward. Finally, Sakata decides to break the silence, trying to muster some courage. He asks her if she knows that he's a hardcore nerd, at least he made the effort. He explains that he has nothing exciting to discuss with girls, not even topics like anime, manga, or video games. He reveals he's saying this to encourage her to leave him, hoping it would end the awkwardness. However, she decides to entertain the conversation and asks who his favorite character is. Caught off guard, Sakata hesitates but ultimately tells her about his favorite character, explaining he likes her because of the headphones she wears. Yuka is surprised by his unique taste and asks if she has her own niche interests. Blushing, Yuka admits that it's hard to explain. She reveals that she likes it when someone wears a shirt with the top button undone. Sakata realizes they could do that with a necktie. At this point, Sakata feels a bit confused, and he suspects he's not the only one. Yuka explains that she prefers those styles because the more dynamic individuals tend to leave their buttons undone, but she's also into the fully buttoned look. They both start laughing about their quirky preferences. Sakata decides to grab some drinks and snacks as they talk endlessly, proudly showcasing their knowledge. Yuka realizes this is the first time she's engaged in such a lengthy conversation, and it dawns on her that she wants to see his room. However, Sakata declines her request, but she reassures him that it's fine because she's an anime nerd too. She jokes that if she encounters a naked figure or anything strange, she'll pretend to lose all her senses and erase those memories. He explains that he and Yuna share a secret in that room, but she counters that she is the voice of Yuna and knows her best since she plays the character. Sakata dismisses her statement, retorting that he knows Yuna better than she does. Yuka becomes confused, feeling a deep connection to the character she voices. Sakata then agrees to show her his room. They make their way upstairs, and he swings open the door to his room. Upon entering, Yuka is taken aback. It's surprisingly neat and tidy, yet it resembles a merchandise shop with all the badges, figures, and keychains on display. To his delight, she playfully recites one of Yuna's lines. Sakata is taken aback to hear Yuna's voice and expresses his admiration, affirming that it's his favorite line as well. He thanks her for bringing Yishan to life, saying she has made his world brighter. He admits to sending an overwhelming number of fan letters up until now. Yuka responds by telling him that fan letters genuinely make her happy, especially one from a devoted admirer, which brings a big smile to her face. Curious, she asks for his pen name, mentioning that she tries to remember most of her fans' messages. When he reveals his name, Yuka is shocked to realize he's Death's love. Sakata then inquires if the letter she received was indeed from him, and as it falls to the ground, it confirms his identity. Yuka begins to grumble about something, and Sakata wonders what's troubling her. Suddenly, she bows and declares, while admitting her inexperience, that she will do her best to be his wife. This catches him completely off guard. Then she realizes something feels off and thinks that the honorifics make her sound overly formal, suggesting they use their nicknames. However, when she calls him Yukun, she blushes, prompting her to seek an alternative but is interrupted by Sakata, which makes her apologize. She explains that she tends to be clumsy in conversations and might have overdone it. Sakata then observes that she briefly resembled a unicorn in her expression. He's surprised to see her so talkative, especially since she usually keeps to herself at school, quietly engaged in her own activities. Suddenly, she grabs Sakata's hand and asks him to marry her, which leaves him stunned. She can't understand why he would reject her when his father arranged for him to marry his favorite voice actress. Conflicted, Sakata begins to explain that the person voicing Yuna is a real person, unlike the character, which is why he feels he must turn her down. Although he appreciates her feelings for him, he is wary of love, having been hurt before, and he doesn't want to go through that again. He reassures her that he doesn't harbor any negative feelings, just a sense of fear. In response, Yuka reveals that she initially intended to decline the marriage offer herself. Holding up a letter, she expresses her desire to give back the support he has shown her over the years. She shares that she struggled to find the right pitch for Yuna's voice, often having to redo just 2 lines multiple times. Whenever she felt down, she would revisit the letter from Death's love, finding strength and motivation to keep pushing forward. His kind words uplifted her during her toughest moments, making her cry tears of gratitude. Sakata thinks it must have been odd for her, but she insists it was not at all. When she heard about being assigned a marriage partner, she thought she wouldn't mind being forced to marry someone if it were Death's love. She never anticipated that the real person would turn out to be her classmate. Yuka considers him kind for helping her without ever having spoken before, perfectly matching the kind-hearted persona she imagined of Death's love. With a bright smile, she declares that their meeting must be destined, leaving Sakata utterly speechless, unable to respond, especially not from the waist down. Feeling as though she has a lot to share, Yuka asks Sakata to take care of her. Despite this, he's still mulling over his aversion to 3D girls. Yuka points out that she's a 2.5 version of Yuna, so it should be acceptable for him. She starts playfully encouraging him to seize this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Finally, Sakata tosses aside his doubts and agrees, causing Yuka's face to light up with joy. She promises to give her all as his wife. Curious, he asks if she can cook, to which she confidently replies, of course, and presents a beautifully prepared meal for dinner. As they sit down to eat, he discovers that she really can cook, and the food tastes incredible. Suddenly, she insists that he call her Yuka since she is now his wife. They exchange contact information, solidifying their new relationship. After Yuka emerges from the bath, Sakata notices she isn't wearing her glasses. She playfully reveals the shocking truth that glasses are removable, and she didn't come into the world wearing them. Yuka also mentions that she'll be living with him from now on, eager to learn more about him. Sakata is taken aback but reassures her it's fine, as long as she avoids being seen at school. He suggests she use his sister Nao's room on the 2nd floor to unpack her things. Both express excitement about living together, despite Yuka's lack of experience. Once in his room, Sakata begins to second-guess the situation. He receives a goodnight text from Yuka, which makes him smile as he responds in kind. The next morning, Sakata is awakened by the sounds of cooking coming from the kitchen. He walks in to find Yuka bustling around like a professional chef. She greets him cheerfully, and he's surprised at how different she looks compared to her school persona. It's as if she transformed from Clark Kent into Superman in an instant. As they prepare to head to school, Yuka questions whether it's wise for them to go together like this. Sakata blushes at the thought, and as she runs ahead, he notices how the quiet girl from his class bears a striking resemblance to Yuna. He then tells her they need to keep their engagement a secret from their classmates, which shocks her. Yuka asks Sakata why he wants to keep their relationship under wraps. He explains that he wouldn't want rumors to start spreading and create unnecessary commotion. Understanding this, Yuka agrees and promises to do her best to act like an ordinary classmate. However, she admits she's unsure how long she can maintain the facade. Sakata reassures her, reminding her to behave, to which she responds, "Sir." "Yes, sir." Later in the classroom, Yuka approaches Sakata's table and abruptly asks if he wants to go to the hospital before walking away, leaving him and Mesa stunned. Mesa questions the meaning behind her comment, but Sakata brushes it off, although Masa suspects it might be some form of foreshadowing. In truth, Yuka simply texted him, asking if he'd like to visit an ophthalmologist together. Sakata realizes she's quite difficult to read, yet he feels like he understands her better than anyone else. When Yuka catches him staring, she flashes him a quick smile, causing him to blush, while Mesa jokingly interprets it as a threat of medieval torture. After school, Sakata walks home alone, contemplating when Yuka's things will arrive. Suddenly, Yuzin calls out to him, inviting him to walk home together. She apologizes for not being able to contain her excitement and expresses her desire to catch up. She confesses that running after him makes her heart race. When they arrive home, Yuka's luggage is already there. She rushes in to organize her belongings and instructs the movers to take everything to the second floor. Yuka feels a rush of excitement, knowing she will be living with Death's love. She promises herself she'll do her best as his bride. Meanwhile, Sakata is still grappling with the reality of living with a real girl. The moving is complete, and all the boxes are in Yuka's room. He offers to help her, but she insists she can manage on her own. Sakata is still amazed that they're actually cohabitating, especially as the weather forecast warns of an approaching thunderstorm. After a while, Yuka reappears looking refreshed and asks if he can make her some tea. The two sit quietly watching the news, and Yuka shares that she's starting to enjoy living with him, which Sakata agrees with. He then inquires about dinner, but she suddenly goes quiet and starts pouting. Yuka explains that they should come up with nicknames for each other. After some thought, she suggests calling him my husband, which nearly makes Sakata lose his lunch from embarrassment. Eventually, Sakata tells her he's fine with her calling him Yukin. With teary eyes, she counters that Yuka-chan doesn't hold the same significance. Just then, Sakata's stomach growls, interrupting their exchange. Yuka got up and headed straight to the kitchen to prepare a meal for Sakata. After a while, she returned with a warm, delicious dinner. Sakata thanked her but just called her Yuka, omitting the honorific Chan. This made Yuka blush, and she nodded enthusiastically. He decided to call her Yuka from then on. They spent the evening watching a TV show, feeling a bit sad when it ended on a cliffhanger. Realizing it was time for bed since they had classes the next day, they began to separate for the night when suddenly the lights went out, followed by a loud thunderstorm. Yuka quickly clung to him, admitting that thunderstorms were her kryptonite. Sakata tried to calm her down, but it didn't seem to work. She asked if she could sleep in his room for the night. Stunned by her request, she eventually dragged her mattress into his room. Sakata attempted to separate their mattresses a little, but she refused and pulled them closer together. He still couldn't believe he was about to sleep next to a real girl instead of Yikan. As she clung to him, she kindly asked to sleep beside him. They ended up with their mattresses close together, and while Yuka was terrified of the thunder, Sakata struggled with his own feelings. He couldn't fall asleep and turned to check if Yuka was awake. To his surprise, she was still awake, and when their eyes met, she quickly hid her face in the blanket, popping back up like a game of whack-a-mole. To break the tension, he pretended to be asleep. Yuka reached out and placed her hand on top of his, and they began talking about random topics. When he awkwardly placed his hand on her cheek, not the one that can clap, he quickly pulled it back, thinking she might not like it. She reassured him that she didn't hate it and blushed, asking him to be gentle with her. As he turned away, she hid her face again, but Sakata finally mustered the courage and reached into her blanket to hold her hand. Yuka blushed even more. Sakata decided to pull the blanket back to see her face, only to find she had fallen asleep. He gently patted her head and returned to his mattress, surprised to realize he was beginning to fall for a non-2D girl. The next morning, they walked to school together. Upon arriving in class, Nayahara greeted them, but their teacher barged in, questioning why everyone looked so lifeless. She encouraged them to be more energetic and to pump those tits and milk those dicks. Mesa realized their teacher, Gaki Yatsuko, was going all out today. She was a 20-year-old single teacher and a complete extrovert, the opposite of Sakata. Suddenly, Nihira called out Sakata's name, commenting that he must think Gaki was completely different from him. She added that his face was easy to read and suggested they hang out sometime. Stunned, Sakata was taken aback when she proposed they go out after school that day. Gaki announced to everyone that they would be going to karaoke, with Sakata joining them. He thought about how someone needed to stop her, but no one was willing to intervene, knowing she wouldn't take no for an answer. Sakata tried to decline, saying he wasn't into that kind of thing, but Gaki reminded him that she encouraged them to make more friends. Unable to refuse, he reluctantly agreed, but then Yuka stepped in and said she wanted to go too. Then she and Nayahara lock eyes, the atmosphere charged with energetic anime music playing in the background. They find themselves in a karaoke venue where the beats drop, and Nayahara passionately starts to belt out a tune. Meanwhile, our protagonist sits awkwardly, his nerves evident as he grips his drink, trembling from the anxiety of being in a public setting. He glances at Yuka, concerned as she appears to be sweating slightly. She confesses that she's feeling a bit anxious because this is her first karaoke experience with him. Suddenly, Nihira butts in, moving closer to him. She excitedly mentions a popular song that she thinks is amazing. Sakata begins to panic, realizing that if she continues moving like that, he might soon find himself captivated by her curves, making it hard for him to control his urges. At the same time, Yuka gives him an intense look, which makes him uneasy, suggesting she might think he only cares about larger assets. Desperate to navigate the situation, he attempts to steer the conversation elsewhere, but Nihira approaches him again and encourages him to join in singing some hits. She then invites him to duet with her, but he awkwardly admits he doesn't recognize the song she's suggesting. After a moment of thought, Nihira hands him the tablet, asking him to check out a particular track. It's the theme from a robot-themed anime. Sakata protests vehemently against her choice of song, yet Nihira proceeds to play it, passing him the microphone and insisting he sing along. This jogs his memory of jamming to it back in middle school. Just then, Yuka grabs the mic, standing up to request a turn, and begins to perform. Music notes swirl around the screen as she sings, leaving Sakata mesmerized. He feels a rush of exhilaration from her voice. The audience erupts in applause as her performance shines, bringing tears to Mesa's eyes. Meanwhile, Sakata muses that while it was a beautiful rendition, her interpretation strayed from the original version he remembered. As he fills his cup at the drink bar, he reflects on the night. When Yuka approaches him, he expresses his gratitude for stepping in and rescuing him during the performance. She confides that she deliberately altered her singing style to conceal her true identity from everyone present, asking him to keep this information just between the two of them. After wrapping up their karaoke experience, Nihira approaches Yuka, suggesting they hang out again since she had so much fun, and she waves goodbye to them. On his way home, Sakata breathes a sigh of relief. The ordeal is finally over, as his social energy had been nearly depleted. Upon opening his front door, he is welcomed warmly by Yuka, who mentions that she was getting tired of waiting for him. The two settle onto the couch where Sakata shares how exhausting the karaoke outing was. Yuka reveals that she wanted to sing many more songs, rising from her seat to ask if he would listen to her perform another one. Sakata feels a bit puzzled, recalling that she had just finished singing at the karaoke. But she encourages him to listen as she begins to fill the room with music notes once more. As she sings, he experiences a surge of enlightenment, as if his awareness is expanding. He quickly realizes that it's the same song she performed at karaoke earlier, but this time it feels different, almost as if it's Yakan singing it. After she finishes her performance, she returns to her room, bidding him good night. Sakata heads back to his room and, while on his phone, receives messages from Nao, inquiring if he has graduated from Virgin University yet. This news doesn't make him particularly happy, and he finds himself thinking about her. Chilling on the couch, he gets another notification and walks to the front door. Surprised to find his sister New back home so early, she complains about having to wait for him, then steps inside and notices that the rooms are tidy and no longer smell like he's been living with dry-aged rats. Sakata asks why she came over unexpectedly, and she explains that their dad is deeply concerned about his marriage and fears that everything might fall apart, leading to a breakup. She then inquires about how far things have progressed between him and Yuka, wondering if they might soon have a little one running around. She is taken aback to learn that they haven't done anything yet, and asks if he's even been naked in front of her, to which Sakata firmly replies no. Just then, Yuka returns and greets Nao, apologizing for not having prepared anything for her to eat, although she insists she's fine with what she has. Suddenly, Nu moves closer to Yuka, staring at her silently, and asks what she finds so amusing. Yuka shares that she was just thinking about how cute Nu is, which prompts her to suggest they go shopping together, have dress-up parties, and enjoy other fun activities, expressing that it must be lovely to have a sister like her. Yuka then excuses herself to change clothes and prepare a delicious meal. However, Nu stops her, insisting that she should change here since they're family. Hearing this, Yuka's face turns bright red, and Sakata tells Nu to be quiet while suggesting he'll help Yuka with the meal prep. Enough feeling irritated because he often changes the subject when embarrassed, playfully asks if he really doesn't want to see Yuka in her birthday suit. Our boy can't bring himself to deny this, and Nu tells Yuka that he definitely wants to see her without clothes. Sakata quickly bonks no and apologizes to Yuka for her comment. Yuka then mentions she hadn't considered that, so today she isn't wearing anything particularly revealing, causing her to stutter. He reassures her that she should take her time and doesn't need to feel pressured. Despite this, he starts imagining Yuka in her Calvin Klein underwear, which nearly tears a hole in his pants. Once the food is ready, Now compliments how amazing it looks, and they all express their gratitude before diving into the meal. Suddenly, New asks if the couple bathes together, considering they are a couple. They both deny it, which confuses her since their dad mentioned showering with their mom for years. She expresses her hope that now that Yuka is his fiancée, she'll do everything to make him happy. Sakata reassures her that everything is going well, but then Yuka stands up, saying she'll take a bath with him. This causes him to panic, and New questions if she's really going to do it. Yuka confidently replies that of course she will, since she is his fiancée. As Sakata gets into the shower, he envisions a scenario where Yuka enters and suggests she wouldn't mind if he started squeezing her breasts. He quickly dismisses that thought when Yuka announces she's about to enter the bath. The door slides open, initiating the bathing arc, but she's still in a swimsuit, so her assets aren't flopping around.